Charles Jenkins comes big when it matters. Milan are an absolute mess. And there were some big appearances in Euroleague last week, and a few more on the way this week. It's all ahead of us on Sweet 16. Tune in.
Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of Sweet 16, an open look on Euroleague basketball. Yes, it's been somewhat of a long road till now, and this is the 9th episode already. Emmett, hi. Hi, Arius. What are your thoughts about it?
Greetings from Dublin, where my bedroom's still a mess, but at least I'm kind of wearing a shirt this time. And yeah, it's been a crazy ride to this, and we continue to have teams shocking us, so I'm in no way surprised that I keep getting surprised.
And hello from Athens, where we are still recovering from the latest Greek Cup derby between Olympiacos and Panathinaikos.
So we got a lot ahead of us in this show. Of course, we're going to look back at last week's games with a huge win, as he said in the intro, for Zvezda over Fener. We're going to have a very brief look at that R-rated game really in Moscow, and look ahead to the other games coming ahead this week. But as ever, we're going to begin, well, the way we always begin. 4 minutes to get through all the action that just happened in Euroleague. It's the 4-minute warning. And as ever, the 4-minute warning isn't quite 4 minutes, but, it's that time of season where there's too much to talk about, folks. So maybe let's call it the 4x4 minute warning in this case.
So we can't really say it was a surprise because it was a game of Crvena Zvezda. It was in Belgrade. But on the other hand, Aris, a couple weeks ago, actually last week, we said that beating should Zvezda beat Fener, this is going to be a big statement. And a big statement it was.
It was a huge statement because now Zvezda is not exactly playoff bound, but at least has more than a fighting chance to be in the top 8. On the other hand, you have Fenerbahce, which has injury issues. Ekpe Udo is not playing at 100% at this point. Pero Antic is also having his troubles. So on one hand, you have some things that have proven difficult for Fenerbahce to overcome, but on the other hand, you have the Cinderella story of Euroleague in this season unfolding in front of all of us, and it's amazing. It's a team with a very modest budget, a lot of local talent, and a great fan base. So I believe that they are the perfect candidates to play the role of Cinderella.
If we could have only asked for for each game in the EuroLeague to start with the same fan display as we get time after time from the Zvezda's fans, from the Red Star fans, it would have been amazing. I mean, simply for that, you're getting into the atmosphere without even having the necessity of being there. That alone, I think, it helps their team get into the rhythm, not just to the rhythm, it gives them a lot of pushing, and that's something that they needed, especially in the last minutes where Kuzmic has had a great game, but the clutch plays, like the final block that ended the game, was his. It was a game that, like you said, it's a statement, and it's more than a fighting chance for them. And I think that right now, they are one hell of a team, and we're going to talk about them obviously during the show as we get to the games of the week. But Emmett, you talked about an R-rated game, CSKA, Milan. Shortly we'll talk about it, but what was it for you?
Well, just the speed at which it got ugly fast was the big thing. No one expected Milano to be competitive here. We also had a big display by CSKA, but even before Milos came on, middle of the first, this just looked like it was going to be ugly, and sure enough it was. CSKA's backups, as they are prone to doing, came up very good, a lot of big plays, and it was the depth there. We talked about the 5-hole issues. That was an issue, I suppose. Well, it wasn't in this game, but you could see why it's an issue in other games. And Milano did nothing really there to exploit that. And yeah, they were just terrible.
Aris, Panathinaikos, Anadolu Efes, it was a great game. Second time that these teams meet this season, and they get to overtime. This time, a few players came big, like Gentile, like Kenny Gabriel. In overtime, in a game that it looked like Panathinaikos didn't get the full experience of Nikolates, but they managed to get an important win.
The story for Panathinaikos at this point is, of course, Kenny Gabriel, but also Casey Rivers. Casey Rivers having some amazing games. The latest against Olympiacos, in which he scored 27 points, and thanks to a new play by Coach Pascual, which is based on the mismatches and the ability of Casey Rivers to play down in the post. We have seen him becoming the number one option in Panathinaikos offense when Kalathis is not on the court. So Panathinaikos is starting to build something new. They are trying to find ways to get past the fact that their only creator is Kalathis, and so far they are doing more than good. The question is how things will end up in the season with the lack of a second point guard, and of course how the Gentile story will pan out, because so far Gentile is still on an adaptation stage.
Another great game we talked about last week was Olympiacos, and coming to the Balagrena, and we saw them play without Spanoulis, but we also saw Printezis coming up big. The way we love seeing him doing exactly what he needed. But that game, just like maybe the Madrid-Maccabi game, symbolized maybe a potentially end of the road for both Maccabi and Barcelona.
Yeah, I think with taking Barcelona on this one, it's no accident we've seen some roster moves already in the week since. We're going to talk about those later. But they've realized if they're going to have any hope in the playoffs now, after that loss, it has to be an extreme move.
Aris, what did you think about Olympiacos beating Barcelona on the road?
Well, it was a great testament to the character of the team and to the character of Giorgos Printezis, who is practically the co-leader of the team, the co-captain, or if you say the deputy captain of the roster and of Olympiacos. Printezis is a product, the only product currently of Olympiacos junior teams in the first team. It's a fairy tale story for him, and also a fairy tale story for the fans. And the fact that they managed to get the win against Barcelona, which had its back on the wall, says a lot about the potentials of this team. Now Olympiacos, who started modestly saying that we want to be in the top 8 and then try our best to be in the Final Four, is aiming to the home court advantage.
I agree, and winning without Spanoulis, that was something big. But I again, the amount of times that we've talked about Papanikolaou coming back, and it's getting more and more important for Oli. And well, obviously we hope that it's going to continue like that, because they are a fun team to watch at the end of the day. They are a very fun team to watch. And there was another great game played in Spain. Maccabi were playing at the Barclays Arena at Madrid. Again, they found themselves in a comfortable lead. It was a double-digit lead, not as big as they had versus Ceska or versus Dachka. But they looks like by now they have some sort of a mentality problem. It looks like they are capable of doing something, but they are just not consistent enough. And you know what? When you're getting a monster display by Doncic, what else can we ask for?
And just a quick word on that, Maccabi lost. Yeah, they didn't lose in the ideal way, but Real are a serious contender for this title, so they're the type of team who can make that comeback. And the early days, and they are very early days, and I remember how we jinxed Rami Hadar. It's still promising from Bagastis, whose name I will one day pronounce correctly, because you can start to see the improvements from Maccabi in terms of certain parts of their game, but it's a long road ahead.
REC said last week that Real are probably going to have the first word and the last word, and that is exactly what happened. Even though that, in my opinion, this game didn't matter too much for Maccabi's rankings, because that was not a game that they expected or they counted in, within the entire barrier for which if they want to make it to the next round. The 14 barrier, Ahmed, is pretty much, and ours, what we've talked off the record, and now we're discussing it. It looks like that the team that's going to be the number 8 seed is going to, 14 wins is a number that's going to be sufficient enough. Obviously, it's untested, and only time will tell if we are correct with it. But that's what I'm saying. Ars, don't you agree that this game might have been crucial for Maccabi, but not as much?
The problem for Maccabi and for all the other teams that are left behind is that probably a team near 50%, with a record near 15%, will be the last to reach the top 8 in the playoffs. So at this point, there is no game that they just can lose without any ramification. We are past the point of no return in the season, and I believe that at this point every defeat will hurt all the teams that that have at this point less than 7 wins. And even those that have 7 wins, they have to get almost a perfect record from now on in order to really hope that they can make it. It's not easy for anyone, and that's why on the opposite side of the spectrum, Crvena Zvezda has a real chance of making to the playoffs because they have already got their big wins.
We'll finish this segment off. The 4-minute warning, which was, as always, from the beginning of the second round, was a bit more than that. I feel for Bamberg, to be honest. They've had a miraculous recovery so far, and this loss, I mean, it was Keith Langford pretty much versus Bamberg in that game, and Keith Langford prevailed for the who knows how many times already. It's too bad. I mean, they still have their shot for the playoffs, but it's a game that they shouldn't have lost. And that's pretty much it for the 4 to 10 minute warning. Now it's time for our Scouts Notebook, where we'll discuss the latest roster additions.
And now it's time for the Scouts Notebook, where we look back at key performances during the week in Euroleague to see who stood out and why.
Another number one draft pick after Andrea Bargnani is in Europe trying to resurrect its career, and Anthony Bennett is a much bigger mystery than the Italian forward, because Bargnani have proven in his 10-year tenure in the NBA that at least he is a capable scorer. Bennett is kind of a mystery right now. The upside of him is that he is still very young and he fits the mold of the undersized EuroLeague center. It will be very interesting to see him playing under a motivator like Zeljko Obradovic, and if he cherishes this chance, then I don't know what his ceiling will be. In every way, this is a big move for Fenerbahce, and it's also a move that demonstrates the will of the management to get once more all the way.
I agree that it's a big move. I mean, Fener needed a roster reinforcement, and that's exactly what they got. There's a big question mark whether he can contribute right now, and how, and in what positions. Because he might be used as a 5, maybe as a 4, and we do know that some of Fener's players are not playing up to their expectations. Emmett, your quick thought about it?
Like, I've been preaching online that I have no idea how this is going to work out. It's low risk for both sides, obviously. The interesting thing will be to see if he can somehow be a way of giving, Udo and Vesely time not sharing the 4 together, so they can have one of them on the floor for the full 40 minutes at least, isn't combined. But other than that, I have no idea how this is going to work out. This, to me, is a wide open experiment.
Well, at least they got a big talent, and a big talent, that's what they need, at least, to get back motivation-wise. And that was not the only addition made this week. Barcelona announced Vitor Faverani, ex-Celtics, ex-Maccabi Tel Aviv, and right now the latest, maybe best offensive center available for Barcelona to handle. In a way, it's a good signing, but I'm not that sure that is what they need. They need another defensive stopper. Faverani is not exactly that. He can help them offensively, which is great, which they need. But maybe we're expecting another roster addition very soon.
I think so. This is definitely a case of, I think, Barcelona thinking addition by subtraction. They subtracted one US passport, and that was the key thing with cutting Joey Dorsey. They clearly felt that him and Tomic as your pairing for your 2 5s wasn't working. They bring in Faverani, who, Moshe, you've explained the issues with him overall, but the one thing he has going for him is a Spanish passport. So that way Barcelona have filled out another role for an extra American. You assume they're going to look for a wing. Now, who that wing is, I think there was at least 2 smarter people on this podcast than me when it comes to picking who that might be. But I think very much this move was focused on what else we can do. Aris, what are your thoughts on the Faverani move?
The Faverani move, I believe that it's an addition that was needed to be made. The big question for Barcelona remains who will replace Joey Dorsey, because after his outburst on Instagram about the team doctors, I don't believe that he has a real future in the team. So Faverani is a nice addition. He gives one more body to coach Barjokas, because we don't really know when Sen Laval will be back. But we will see. It's too early to predict anything. I don't think that it's exactly a panic move, because Barcelona needs to get wins. It's a move out of need because they need big bodies and they don't have any.
After talking about Faverani, which again, I love this player, and I still don't know how everything would fit in, but if we're talking Barcelona, Aris, I could not overlook the fact that last Monday, the EuroLeague Monday memories showed the buzzer beater made by Printezis that sent Olympiacos to the 2015 Final Four. Long and behold, Printezis shines versus Barcelona.
Well, this shot of Printezis, this three-pointer at Chef is already part of the EuroLeague, of the Olympiacos lore, maybe also of EuroLeague lore, but without Spanoulis, it's very predictable for him to step up. It's very natural for him to step up, and he's the only real post player of Olympiacos. He's the only player who can play with his back on the basket, and one of the very few in Europe that can do that. So it may come as a surprise that he took the challenge once more. He may not seem so dominating as he did last season, for example, but you just can't underestimate him. The fact that he is so good and with his back on the basket, he's one of the few big men who can play one-on-one situation so perfectly, and he's also a consistent long-range shooter. It makes all the difference. Offensively, he has every weapon on his arsenal.
If you had an open look, one shot, would you swish it, wish it, or go fish it? 16 teams, gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.
It may not be the official game of the week, but for me, the game that just jumps out as the perfect time, the perfect slot, and two teams I really just want to see play each other. Olympiacos against Baskonia. Like Oli, we of course saw the drama last week with their win over Barcelona. Baskonia on the wrong side have a bit of drama against Dashka. They're just two sides who they're great to watch right now. You've got obviously Ken Burch, sort of a breakout star on the defensive end, in particular for Oli this year, as well as all their established stars, versus Baskonia, who have just once again shown that they have an incredibly smart front office that puts together a very good and very entertaining basketball team. Like for me, the 8 o'clock CET slot on its own for that game. I'm grabbing a couple of beers, watching that in the pub, to be honest. I'm going to get my laptop out for that. Aris, I suppose you can give a bit more concise view of why we should watch this game.
Well, first of all, let me talk a little bit about Fenerbahce Panathinaikos. It's a game that it's crucial for both teams. They have to win in order to stay on course. Whoever loses this game should be in trouble. And now let's get back to the game that will probably be the most interesting affair, because Olympiacos has a great tradition against Baskonia, especially in recent years, and things couldn't be better in terms of timing for this showdown. Olympiacos usually wins on the road against Baskonia. It's a very strange occurrence, but I believe that it can be explained from the big men that Baskonia likes to use, and they all have one characteristic that it's pretty much the same. They have problem defending the pick and roll, and that's the main offensive weapon of Olympiacos against Baskonia, and it works every time. If they present something different this time, maybe they will have a real chance. Also, Olympiacos is coming out of the defeat in the Greek Cup semi-final from Panathinaikos. It was just the first defeat of Olympiacos by Panathinaikos in their fourth already game this season, but it was made at home, so Olympiacos has to react, and reacting against Baskonia means one more step towards the home court advantage. After a long time, Olympiacos does not have any real injury issues, and on the other hand, it seems that Andrea Bargnani will finally be available for Baskonia, so it seems that the stars have aligned in order to bring us a great game.
What I love about this game is, first of all, Olympiacos were the only team to beat Baskonia at the Fernando Buesa Arena, and that is one great achievement. It was a great game where we saw also Papa Nicolau having another great performance. This game, my opinion, actually, when we're talking strategic-wise, Olympiacos, in my opinion, they have some advantage in the 5 position. They are much more mobile and athletic than Baskonia, though Baskonia can spread the floor better with their 5 position. This is one great game that, well, I give the advantage to Olympiacos for obvious reasons, even though that Baskonia are playing a great looking basketball that's so much fun to watch. That's it for me anyways from that point of view. Let's talk a bit about Fenerbahce versus Panathinaikos. Guys, this game has all the makings to become one of the greatest games of the week, especially for not just what it symbolizes, but the effects that it's going to have, what we've got left from the regular season. Aris, last time Coach Obradovic came to the OAKA, he lost. And we do know that this time around, should Fener lose this game as well, even though they are playing right now at home, it could get them tangled up in a much not needed, maybe tiebreakers as we're approaching the later rounds of the regular season.
Well, first of all, Coach Obradovic has never beaten Panathinaikos at OAKA since he left Panathinaikos. So this is not news at this point. On the other hand, Panathinaikos have never beaten Fenerbahce under Obradovic on the road. And it will be very interesting to see how Panathinaikos will react in their third big game after beating Anadolu Efes in overtime and after beating Olympiacos on the road. I don't know if the current Panathinaikos team is ready for one more big game against one top-level opponent. I believe that going into this game, the advantage of Panathinaikos is that at this point Fenerbahce has much more to lose compared to Panathinaikos. And this may be a factor. Panathinaikos is constantly changing. As I said before, Casey Rivers is now the main offensive weapon, the player who makes the difference. So it will be very interesting to see how he will continue his very hot streak.
I mean, we're looking at the standings currently week by week. We see everything progresses, but right now Fener are 10-7, just like Panathinaikos. They are the number 5 and 6 seeds right now. But looking at the 7th and 8th, we're looking at Crvena Zvezda and Darussafaka. There's only one game difference.
Yeah, and for Fener as well, Moshe, like top 4 is so crucial to them this season. Like, it would be seen as a failure of the season, for them not winning the title as a failure of the season, but it would seem as a major shock to them if they don't at least get home court in the playoffs. And they've obviously got like teams chasing them from behind. Now, Fener, I think, because they're already 10 wins, they're going to get at least a top 8 finish, just purely because of the number of wins they have already. But like Aris is saying, it's a much more important game for Fener to win than Panathinaikos. I think Panathinaikos can drop this game and still be fine. And of course, there's a gulf between the loser of this game and the top 4 is only going to increase.
Well, that's true. And there are 2 do-or-die games, I think, this week. Obviously, Maccabi are hosting Crvena Zvezda on Thursday. And there's the Barcelona-Anadolu Efes. Let's start talking about Barcelona-Anadolu. Last time these 2 teams played, sort of controversial finish that left Anadolu with the win. Where do you think this game is going this time?
It's reading Barcelona and Anadolu as the season has been challenging. Hard to read Efes, in fairness. They have, in my respect, actually exceeded my expectations. They're playing better than I thought. Now, admittedly, I had set a low bar for that. But Barcelona right now, it's a case of, like, they know this is a game they frankly have to win. Like, if the Efes win this game, their playoff chances are looking a lot healthier than they were like 2 weeks ago even. Like, but Barca, if they lose this, I don't see what they can do in terms of extra roster changes to save the European side of their season. Obviously, the Spanish side is still very much alive and well, but to save that Euroleague side of the season, it's a huge ask at this stage.
Aris, what do you think of this game?
This game is really the last chance of Barcelona. If they want to stay near the playoffs, they can't drop another game at home against a team that in theory is one of their main opponents for a playoff spot. So I believe that there will be a sense of urgency in Barcelona, especially after losing their domestic league game this weekend. So I don't see how Barcelona will underestimate the game and the opponent. And this is the weapon of Anadolu Efes. They don't have the same amount of pressure on them, and Perasovic knows really well the personnel of Barcelona. So it's a really open game, even though Barcelona has all the tools and all the motivation to win it. It won't be easy at all.
It's not going to be an easy game for sure, and I do think that maybe, just maybe, Anadolu have the slight advantage simply because they are much more athletic than Barcelona, and this game is something is a game that no one will want to miss. And speaking of do or die games, Maccabi find themselves again with their backs up against the wall. Aris, I know we're saying that Maccabi's chances are getting slimmer, thinner, and leaner as we progress. But do you think that a win here for Maccabi could, resurrect in some way their playoff fight, or maybe just advancing to a better place in the standings? And should Zvezda win, we know that it would end for sure Maccabi season. But how do you see all this? How do you see this game?
I think that Maccabi needs this game like they need oxygen. If they lose this game, it's really over for them. And on the other hand, it's a huge challenge for Tsverna Zvezda, and they don't have nothing to lose. So the balance is tipped already. The scale is tipped already on the side of the Serbs. But I don't see how the pride of Maccabi will let them lose this game. And I'm not talking only about the pride of the club, but also the pride of the player. They are still great players, and they can produce great basketball. They have demonstrated this. They are still not a unit, of course, and they have a coach who is trying to institute some principle on the game. Still, because of their talent and because of the fan support that they will have in Tel Aviv, I believe that they are still the favorites. I don't know if a win against Tsverna Zvezda it will be enough for them for the rest of the road. Of course, if they lose, it will be a disaster.
Hamid, how do you see this thing progressing, this thing developing, this game, especially after Maccabi? Well, they didn't just lose when they played in Belgrade. They got smoked. They just lit them up. The game ended, I think, 25 points difference. It's like Ari said, the players are playing for their pride after what happened there. How do you see this game developing?
Well, given my record with Zvezda so far, both on the site and this podcast this season, I know that the red side of Belgrade expects Maccabi to win.
So, Emmett, you're going with Maccabi. I'm going with Maccabi as well. But just to be on the safe side this time, I'm not going to be surprised either way. But again, it's Maccabi. It's like 11,000 fans in the stands who want this win bad. And I mean like real bad. And I guess that this is pretty much all we've got for you on the 9th episode of Sweet 16, an open look on EuroLeague basketball. Before we go, just remember, every day is a EuroLeague day. You can always find me on at MosesB1 and I am Team Scout on Twitter, as well as Team Scout on Facebook. Emmett, where can they find you?
As ever, of course, ballineurope.com, at BIE_basketball on Twitter, and Facebook.com/ballineurope. Follow us, like us, share us, you know the drill.
And you can always look up for me on Twitter, on Facebook, and of course on Eurohoops.
Emmett, Aris, thank you guys for being here again on the 9th episode. Till next time, with just don't forget to follow, share, just like Emmett said, and don't forget this show will be available both on Eurohoops TV on YouTube, as well as SoundCloud and iTunes. Till next time.
Sweet 16, an open look on
EuroLeague basketball, covering 16 EuroLeague teams.
Gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.